Welcome to the Clicks and Giggles podcast. Today I have my friend and client, Melissa Franks, with us. Welcome. I'm so happy you're here.
I am so excited to be here. I can't wait for our chat that we're going to have today.
Let's freaking go. So I first met Melissa probably almost 2 years ago, and I was telling her earlier, I was so intimidated by her. There's this businesswoman who's wrangling kids at home. She's in town from California, and I'm like, who is she? I have to get to know her. And so I did. I'm thankful. And now we work together, which is awesome. And she is the small business whisperer, the fairy godmother of operations for your business, and former COO at very big companies. And so we're going to have her today just talk about all things ops, business building. Just, we've had wild conversations, like truly on some of our one-on-one calls. I'm like, I will not bill you for some of the time because I'm like, I learned from her. Like I tell Brad, I'm like, I learned from her so much. And so I'm just excited for other people to hear from you. So my introduction of you would not do it justice. Would you tell everyone just about you and kind of your journey and how you've gotten to here? And then we'll just freaking dive in.
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, I'm a mom of three boys. So we are 14, 12, and 10, and they're all about as tall as me. So really, really outnumbered and outmanned at this point. I'm based in California, Northern California wine country, where I grew up. And I built my career inside of some of the largest global companies in the world, spanning retail through financial services. And I grew that career from administrative assistant to chief operating officer of a technology company in less than 2 decades. I hit that C-suite before I was 40, and I did it because I like to solve problems and I'm curious. And after over 20 years inside of these mammoth companies, I decided to exit and take my hand at the startup world. And, most of them fail, which the one I was working with did. But what it really reignited for me was a love for helping small business owners and understanding what it takes to grow, optimize, and scale. And corporate is a big, bad word out there. But the one thing that corporate can do is grow massively. And so what I'm doing is I'm taking all of those things that I learned and I delivered, growing my last business from 50 million to 350 million in 3 years. And I'm teaching small business owners how to do it now.
Yes, and you have so much wisdom too for the corporate girly. Like I think of some of my girlfriends listening and I'd love, like we'll talk more on like them and their role in growing as well, like the entrepreneur, because both are so important. Like you can't have a business without the founder, and you also can't have a business without the amazing worker bees who make it happen. And so
100%.
this is so good, and I love your experience in both. And so, oh my gosh, there's so much to talk about. So you and I have had recent conversations about so many things, about founder versus CEO. We've had conversations about like when you're hiring a person for ops, and then also like your exit plan of your business. I would just love like your wisdom on just, can we dive into the like founder versus CEO thing? Because I've never thought of it that way until I put on my stories this morning. Brad's traveling with me for work, and I put having breakfast with my CEO, and like I'm just joking, but also I'm like, I view myself as like founder and in the weeds, and I never want to lose that touch of strategy and in contact with my people. But I'm not administrative, so I have an amazing ops manager, and then Brad kind of just, I don't know, he looks over things when I get stuck. But like, can you explain? So I don't even know if I am doing the right thing saying that, but like, can you explain for people who are, I almost wonder like at what threshold do people realize like, oh, am I a founder? I'm a CEO. Is it like a couple 100,000, do you think? Or like, when do you need to figure that out? Because that's a thing.
It is. And I would say that social media has done us a little bit of harm in that as soon as you decide that you want to start a business, whether it's a side hustle or it's a full-time gig or whatever it is, you're the single employee. And so you call yourself the CEO. And what I would love to do is just obliterate that practice from the vernacular, because quite frankly, it's not needed for legal reasons. It's not needed. And what you really
No
are
one cares. No
nobody
one cares.
Nobody cares. It's like when you go into a bank and everybody's a vice president. right? Even the person
Yeah.
like literally standing at the counter is because everybody's vice president. It's all watered down. It's the same sort of theory. And what I don't want us to do is devalue the role of the founder and the owner of the business, which are also two different things. You can be a founder and not own your business, by the way. So
Dang,
we could
yes.
talk
Okay.
about,
I know someone who is I don't know why I'm air quoting, but I know someone who's
yeah,
a founder but doesn't own it. Okay.
yeah, 100%. So you can be a founder and not, but if you think about it, if you boil it down to kind of the basics, anybody goes into business for themselves, sticks up a single shingle because they identify a problem, usually that they've experienced, and they have found a solution. They have built the better mousetrap, whatever it is.
Whew.
And that means that as the founder, you are the visionary. You are the innovator. You are the one that's designing products and services. You understand your ideal client because generally you are the ideal client. And so really you are sitting in the seat of visionary. Now, when you're a solopreneur, you're also executing. So you're selling, you're doing the back office, you're doing all of those things, right? So you're kind of a Jack and Jill of all trades. But as your business grows, you have different needs. And to your point, some of them are administrative. Like you need a bookkeeper. Sorry, folks, you got to pay your taxes. You need somebody to help manage your clients and treat them as well as you would want them to treat them. And as you go through the business building, there's a decision that every founder has to make. And that is, do I want to remain the visionary? And do I want to remain the one that has this innovative fire in my belly? I can continue to make this better and better and better and offer more products and more services and whatever. Or do you want to be administrative? And do you want to be accountable for the results of the company? And do you want to manage all of the people and all of their functions and make sure that they're delivering the expected results based off of the current business strategy? And it's two different things. I like to say that once you get to a certain size, you have the luxury, if you're a founder, of sitting in the clouds, if that's where you want to sit, because that's where your gift is. And it's very rare, very, very rare that a founder and a CEO are the same person. Incredibly rare.
Oh, this makes me like I was freaking tearing up because I feel so in my zone of genius the more that Riz, my like sweet ops manager and like my second brain, gets more ingrained in my business. And so it does make me tear up because I'm like, oh, that's my sweet spot when I can love on my clients, know they're taken care of, and what is next year like? Like, what is, rather than being like, in today is whatever day, today is Wednesday as this podcast airs. No, like what's 2025 like? What's 2030 like? Like what could it be? And when I get in the weeds and bog down, you know what? I think of you because probably once a quarter I start going on LinkedIn and I'm like, that salary and compensation package looks really good. And I know we're in the season I'm at right now where like there's not a lot of people doing what I do that I would trust to refer people to. And I always remember, and I have a sticky note that says like, if not me, who? And so I stick with it and I figure out how to outsource more. But I agree with you 100%. Like you do have to make the decision, do I stay in the weeds or no? And so what do you kind of recommend if someone's listening and they're like, oh, I don't want to be in the weeds, or like, oh my gosh, I'm a visionary and I haven't been one in forever. What is that next step?
It's all really around how to free up your time. So if you read The Psychology of Money, one of the chapters in Psychology of Money is that true wealth is not the money in the bank, but it's time freedom. And by time freedom, it's a decision about how you spend your time. It doesn't mean that you're sitting on a beach drinking a pina colada and like have no worries in the world. It just means that you actually are the master of your destiny and you get to decide how you want to spend your time. And generally, the reason that people start businesses is because they want wealth in two lanes. They want wealth in the bank and they want wealth in their life. And the best way before you get wealth in the bank to get wealth in your life is to identify as your business grows and you have the ability to bring on support that can do the work that you don't like doing. So you can free up your time to do the work that you love to do. And the way to do that is to hire somebody that's better at it than you. Don't go
Whew.
hire your best friend. Don't go hire the 20-year-old down the street. You go find somebody that knows how to do
Yes.
that thing, right? Whatever it is. They know how to do news copywriting. They know how to do billing. They know how to run
Right.
payroll, like whatever your business is, so much better than you that you literally say, tell me how you would do this in my business. They tell you. You say, great, I'm hiring you to figure out the process and implement what you talked about and then run the thing. And then you forget about it. And then all of a sudden, you have all of this time to be a visionary and to build products and to love on your clients and to sell if that's what you like to do, because you don't have to worry about that thing anymore because you hired somebody that's better than you to do it.
Oof. And like that'll preach. It's so true, and it's also very hard, but you have to weigh on the scale, right? Of, do I want to be out of the weeds or no? Like, that's truly what I've had to ask myself. And gosh, when I started my business, so it was probably at least 4 years ago, I've been consulting. So I'm 33. I've been consulting since I was 20 and finally went full time in 2020. And so I was talking to Olivia Miller. We were on a Zoom. I remember it. And she said, if I can tell you anything, you are about to be the biggest bottleneck for your business. And I'm like, I had like 2 clients at $250 a month, you know? And so I had no idea what she was talking about. And then now I get it and I am it. And so whenever it feels hard, I'm like, where am I bottlenecking? Like, truly today, I after every client meeting, I update Riz on what's upcoming. And then all of a sudden today I was like, hey, do you like, do you want to just ask my clients what's coming up in the next couple months and like what landing and thank you pages they have and what we can do for them? She was like, 100%. Are you ready for that? I'm like, yeah, I am, because there's probably 15 launches in my head between now and fall that like my team has no idea about. And it's just sitting, it's like stewing in my brain, right? And like I say floating around in Diet Coke because my brain is like between Diet Coke and tea. There's like, it's just launches, launches in here. And like, oh my gosh, that one question I unbottlenecked for months. And so, yeah, it is hard. I want to stay in the weeds like 100% so bad. And I have to humble myself to be like, no, you hired people smarter than you. Like 100%. And I love that of like, if you want to be, I mean, here's a quote I'm thinking of that needs to go out when we promote it. But if you want to have your head in the clouds, you need to be willing to pay to be able to get in the clouds and trust that the people you've hired can do it, which is a whole other conversation where in corporate I was so micromanaged. And that was part of why I wanted to get out, right? And so I'm just thinking about all this stuff. Like, there's also on the other side of the coin here, where if you do hire someone, would you say get out of their way, right? Like hold them accountable, but let them do their thing.
So here's the hard truth. Nobody's ever going to do it like you. Nobody. If you hire the right person, they're going to do it better. Right? So you have to, if I was to give an entrepreneur any advice at all, is you need to learn the art of interviewing. And this is everybody. This is interviewing your clients, it's interviewing potential staff, but you need to learn the art so that you can identify exactly what you need to make a decision. The whole point of having an interview is so that you can gather and collect enough information to make a decision. And so when you're searching for members of your team, you have to accept they're never going to do it the way that you do it. They never, ever will. They could even say that you do it perfectly, and they're never going to execute it the way that you do. They're just not. So you need to accept that. And then you need to have really, really, really solid skills to make sure that you're doing the diligence to find the experts. And the last thing that I'll say about that is before they ever start, you need to have a job description, even if they're a freelancer. And this is so that both of you understand what they are and aren't going to do and how their performance is going to be measured. And so if they come in and for whatever reason, they're not performing the way that they said that they were going to perform, you have a really easy thing to go back to and say, this is what I hired you to do, freelancer or employee. This is how we said we were going to measure your performance. We've measured it, and this is where you're falling short. So what are we going to do about it? And then it takes the emotions out. You don't need to micromanage.
Yeah.
You can time box things. You can do all the stuff, but you've got to get really comfortable with, if you want to pay the cost of admission to be in the clouds, then you're going to have to also accept that you can't take all the baggage with you, because you'll never stay there.
Yeah, I love that. I also think about, so for people listening who maybe aren't in a huge spot to hire yet, but they're growing their business, thinking of it too as scope of their contracts. Like, if you realize you're going outside of scope, or I'm just thinking about clients where I'm renegotiating with a couple right now, and it's like, you also can do that if you're like, hey, this is my job description within the scope of our contract. I'm doing more, or hey, you're pulling me this way and I'm not able to do the other things. Like, it goes both ways, you know? And for someone listening who is an entrepreneur, you can go back to who you're working with and be like, hey, love working for you. I notice I'm being pulled in this direction. Like, don't you think that's a good time to renegotiate or just have a conversation so there are the guardrails? Like, they're not, I always think about guardrails of like, you know, relationships, dieting, health, etc. Like, the job description is the guardrail to make sure both parties are happy, you know, including the person doing the work.
100%.
Do you agree with that?
Like, the biggest mistake that people make inside of corporations in general, and I was just having a conversation with somebody like 2 days ago on TikTok about this, is that you get hired externally. So you're brand new to the company, you're shiny and new, they give you a job description because you got to see the job posting. AK, the job posting is not your job description, by the way, just to clarify for everybody. They are not the same thing.
Mic drop. Yeah.
They are not the same thing. So you start and you have a job description, and then you get a different manager, and you move to, your function moves to a different department. And before you know it, you're 5 years in, your title might be the same, but you're doing 90% of the work that isn't on the description that you saw 5 years ago. And
wow, yeah,
you need to be an advocate for yourself as much as you expect the company to advocate for you. Because the company's never going to come back to you and say, you're doing twice as much work as we hired you for, and we're going to double your salary. They're never going to say that to you. Never, ever. Right?
No, I tell my husband about that. Like, I tell Brad in the corporate world, I'm like, you have to have your own back, dog. Like, this is, 100%. They're not, like, businesses be throwing like a popsicle party or a pizza party, you know, to thank you. Yeah. Like, you have to go to them and like politely be like, here's what I'm seeing. What do you see? Right? They're not going to do it for you. And
100%.
I mean, you've probably seen tons of things throughout the years of like just what advocating for yourself can do. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, you're going to get shot down some of the time, but you've got to remember that at the end of the day, this is for anybody. So whether you're a freelancer or you're a corporate person or you're an entrepreneur or whatever it might be, your paycheck is just a part of a transaction. It's just an equation. You are getting money for providing services. Full stop. Mm-hmm. Okay? And if you are providing more services and your pay has not changed, guess what? You're buy one, get one free. You're on discount. You're selling them your services at a reduced price. And if you take yourself out of the corporation for a minute and you put yourself into this small business owner situation, would you intentionally go into the market and say, I'm going to deliver you all this stuff, and oh, here, by the way, here's 50% off because I like you? No, that's not how you do it.
No.
Like, that is not sound business knowledge. You do not put yourself on sale, but people inside of corporate do it all day long.
Whew. It makes me sad.
Yeah.
Oh, I was doing like 50 people's jobs at different jobs I've had. 100%. And I mean, this is not going to surprise you, but I would like relationally build good relationships, friendships with my vice presidents, CEO, different people in the company higher up, and my managers and directors. You could just tell they didn't like it. You could just know. And it was like, I'm not here to take your job. I just like people, like helping people, single at the time, hustler, go. And that did not work out in my favor at all, because it was threatening to them. And now in hindsight, I see it. And B, I'm like, yeah, no wonder I'm an entrepreneur. Because like being relational is not frowned upon, to other people, because it's like it like work is relation, you have to get along in order to do well in business. And so that could be a whole other, workplace politics could be a whole other podcast, and
100%.
just even teams working together, right? But no, I love, what a reminder if someone's in the corporate world, or, a contractor for someone, and if they own the business, to just look at like, hey, what job descriptions do I need to go through, or who do I need to sync up with? And I even ask people on my team, I'm like, how does this feel? Is this good for you? Do you like what you're doing? Like, I don't ask them every day, but probably like once a month. I'm just like, let's get a lay of the land, because the last thing I want is you leaving and me being like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
And same for them. I'm like, you don't have to stay here forever, but I want you to. So what does that look like? No, this is so good. So speaking of like teams and people on your team, we talk about operations, because you feel like, I mean, there's leadership obviously is a huge zone of genius for you, but is operations like your bread and butter, like could do it in your sleep kind of a thing?
It is. So I say that I'm everything but finance and the general counsel. Although one of the small businesses I'm supporting right now, I think that I am kind of being a mini me general counsel and CFO. So dabble, if you will. But
Yeah.
basically that's where the dividing line is. I don't have a CPA, so I'm not licensed to be a financial executive inside of a company, and I am absolutely not a lawyer. I do not have a JD. So those things we would need to go get help with. But aside from
Let's
that,
outsource that.
100%. Everything else is fair game, right? And so operations is really everything that it takes to run the business, whether you're talking about sales and business development, or you're talking about systems and processes, or running payroll, or a lot of this team dynamic stuff that we're talking about, or business strategy.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's everything but the kitchen sink. And that's how I built my career. I built a portfolio career. I basically came in and said, like, how does that work? Or they used to refer to me as the CIA of one of the businesses that I was in, because everybody knew that I was like working with the top executives in the company, but they had no idea what I was doing. And that's because I was working on a turnaround strategy for the business. So, and I was not qualified to do that, mind you, but it was because I was curious and I raised my hand and said, we can figure this out. We'll take all the things. And so now, you fast forward 20 years, and operations really is how the business functions completely, soup to nuts, inside and out. And that's what I'm good at.
So good. That's what I'm not good at. Or I wouldn't say not good at. I don't want to be good at it. You know what I mean? Like, I want someone to handle it. And so I love what you're doing. It's so needed by business owners. You know that, obviously, because of the clients you have, but it's so awesome. So let's talk in operations. You told me this a while ago, and it's such a genius thing you said, and just conversation to be had. You talked about when hiring, people are like hiring the, COO of their company, and they have no employees. Or you know what I mean? Or like they're hiring above, and then the only thing you can do is hire generally above them, right? There's no way to promote them or give them a path to go on. So can you talk about that? Like what you've seen in that, and if someone needs help operationally, what the first step looks like? And then I want to talk more about ways people can work with you.
Yeah. So my hiring strategy is pretty simple. So when you start with a solopreneur business, or even a small business where you have a handful of people, really what you want to do is you want to hire from the bottom up. So as we were kind of talking about, you want to go find people that can give you time freedom, to free up your time. And the best way to free up your time is by completely delegating things that you do not add any value to that. Right. So you don't add value to managing your CRM, your customer management system.
Yes.
Right. But there are people that love that stuff and love data. Right. Bookkeeping is another example. And if we use bookkeeping as an example, because I think that's an easy one to understand, you're a small business. So you have to do financial reporting. You have to pay your taxes. Maybe you've got payroll that has to happen. You have invoices that need to be processed, et cetera. Right. There's a little bit of financial work that's there. Sometimes businesses hire a bookkeeper and they call them the CFO. And the thing is that a CFO is not a bookkeeper. The CFO is actually not even an accountant. The CFO is somebody that manages your financial strategy. So do you know what a CFO spends most of their time doing? Is they look at your bank account and they say, well, you have, after the expenses go out and the revenue comes in every month, you have $100,000 sitting in this bank account that's just in a checking account gaining no interest. So we're going to go take that money and we're going to go buy T-bills, which they're going to earn 5%. And that $100,000 is now going to be $105,000 in 6 months. They're figuring out how to take your money and maximize it. The CFO is looking at a macro level, a tax code, and figuring out how you can make capital purchases so you're paying less taxes. The CFO is managing your business financial strategy because their entire focus is growing your profit margin, which is the difference between the expenses going out and the money coming in, right? Your bookkeeper is just making sure that they can take every single line item and say, oh, that was a travel expense, or, oh, that was a freelancer expense for marketing. And if you label that bookkeeper as a CFO, when you're big and you have $100,000 in your bank account that you're not doing anything with and you need somebody to be a CFO, you're going to have to do one of two things. You're either going to have to take that bookkeeper and demote the bookkeeper back down to a bookkeeper status, or you're going to actually have to let the bookkeeper go and bring in the CFO and let them build their organization. Either way, it feels horrible and it feels icky and it doesn't do what you want it to
messy.
do. And it's messy. And from a public perspective, if you're going out there and you're talking about your business and you're saying, I have a CFO and I have a COO and I have a this and I have that, and they're not actually at that professional level from a skill set perspective, your peers in the industry, your clients, your potential investors, the potential buyers, if you want to sell your business one day, they second guess your credibility because you've titled somebody who doesn't have the credentials.
Yes, 100%. No, I see that with bookkeeper versus CPA versus CFO. I see it more bookkeeper, CFO, like you're talking about.
It's an easy example to show. I can use a bunch of different examples, but that's the easiest one to kind of articulate it.
No, 100%, because actually a lady, I would say girl, who I want to come on as a client, she's great. We were talking at this retreat I was at in January, and she said, oh, my bookkeeper said like this product line I have is just not, doesn't make sense probably to keep doing. I said, okay, tell me more. Like, do the people who buy the product become X? I've used this on the podcast before. So I'm going to say that like the product is safari hats. And when you buy them 6 months to a year later, you become a safari tour guide in Africa. That's the easiest way to say it without giving it away. Because she's known around these parts. And she was like, I don't know. And I said, well, I don't think your bookkeeper knows, because if your bookkeeper knew that 1 out of every 10 people who bought a hat becomes a guide, which makes you $10,000 over the lifetime of them, they would not get rid of that product. They would be more strategic in how to sell more of that product, or they'd figure out how to make that product cost less so that they could make more off the front end. You know, it was like conversations that it was like my bookkeeper said, and like, love that. And can they? Like, I'm always like, I don't want people to second guess me all day long, but I want someone to ask me a good question and say like, oh, well, have you thought of this? Or like, have you seen that? And a lot of people are just like taking it as freaking like Bible, like this is what they said. And it's just so wild, because now we're having all these different conversations where I'm like, no, if you know that people are converting from buying that product, you better get that product everywhere, because it does make sense. And so I just feel like 100% where that person was still going by bookkeeper, and there's nothing wrong with bookkeepers as I say this, but it's like, who are you giving the decision making and power to in your business? 100% credibility wise. There's people I see who hire COOs, and I'm like, you need a ops assistant, like in your inbox, dog. You need someone like making spreadsheets and helping you. And then, oh my gosh, in like 2 years, 3 years, a COO makes perfect sense. But like, they're also very expensive hires, right? And so then you're paying more for someone who's not actually executing work. Like, do you see that too? Where it's like just more like,
your safari hat analogy is a really good one because it actually points out why you need an operations strategist or a COO, even if it's on a part-time basis, because the bookkeeper will say, the math isn't mathing. I can't figure this out. And
Right.
what the COO would say, so in that example, the very first thing I would do is say, I need to see all of the data around this product. How long has it been in business? How many people purchased it? How many times have they come back to buy another safari hat? How many referrals have you gotten from that? To your point, how many of them become guides and transition to this other product line and this other service? And we actually go through the entire product strategy and what its lifetime looks like, and like what it's, is it really just the entry level thing? So yeah, maybe it's not making a bunch of money itself, but its value to the business is exponential because of what it drives traffic wise later. And that's where, and these words are confusing, but that's where a part-time COO or a fractional COO comes into play, because it's like, get the person for, 5 hours a week or something. So you can call them on the bat phone and say, like, my bookkeeper said something crazy. Can you help me figure this out? And then all of a sudden you go from like eliminating something where your margin was maybe $5 an item to exploiting the $5 an item because it's actually driving lifetime value of $25,000 a human that buys a hat. Right? Like,
and like things like that make me want to barf. Like it makes you want to barf and be like
100%. And that's why businesses
Melissa.
fail. But that's why businesses fail, because you're doing the best that you can with what's around you. So, there's that old adage that you're the sum of the 5 people that you surround yourself with.
So you were talking about we're the sum of the 5 people we're around. And so that translates into business too. It's not just personally. Can you explain more on that and just kind of thoughts about it?
Yeah. So think about it in your business. Who are the 5 people that you talk to about your business the most? Just put it in your head. So everybody that's listening to this, right? And it's probably the people that you work with in your business. So it's your employees. Maybe it's a significant other. Maybe it's a family member, right? And then look at those people objectively. Have they achieved the level of success that you're looking to achieve? And if the answer is no, then you have to ask yourself if you need to verify the advice from the person surrounding you with somebody that's got the experience or the success or the whatever that you hope to have, right? If you're looking to grow your business from 500,000 to $1 million to 3 million to 10 million, and your bookkeeper is telling you that you need to stop selling the safari hats because the margin is really bad, maybe you should go to somebody who's that understands what it takes to grow and scale and say, so I'm considering getting rid of this thing because my bookkeeper says so. Because what you may find when you go into that conversation with the person that you isn't in your day-to-day, all of the time, and they look at it and they go, why would you ever do that? That's driving $25K a hat you sell. You're just not looking far enough down the line because your bookkeeper's looking at what they understand. And they're only giving you information from their frame of reference. And you actually need to change the prescription on your glasses.
Oof. That's scary if you don't. And so I want to segue with this conversation, because I love it so much, into you do that for people. And it's amazing what you offer. And there's ways if someone's listening where they're like, oh, I have to change my prescription. Like I need someone, or I need to phone a friend, right? So can you talk about the masterclass you offer, and then also your challenge? We're going to have it linked in the show notes, but your challenge is such a good place. Your masterclass is so great just to start. If people are like, oh, I'm growing and this is going to be good and I'm in the long game, because like I say in my podcast intro, no one playing the long game is having a terrible time. They may have a terrible day, but you're not having a terrible time, right? I'm playing the long game. And wait, Melissa, this is like hitting hard. What can you talk more about your masterclass and then the challenge so people know how they can get in with you to start asking these questions as they build and grow?
Yeah. So the masterclass is 30 minutes. Everybody's got 30 minutes. I don't care who you are. You got 30 minutes to come hang out with me. And what we focus on is how you scale to $10 million without burnout, without overhiring, without needing investors, right? How you can get there. And there is one question that you need to answer. that determines your pathway to that number. That's it. Just one.
I'm not going to spoiler alert that question because I know the question because we've been talking about it offline, and it's the crazy. I have like time blocked out to talk to Brad about it because I was like, I don't know. And it's such a good question. So people need to sign up for it. So that's part one. And then once that's just something to get you on the track, noodling on it, right? And then can you talk more about your challenge because it's going to be good. It is good.
Yeah,
I know it.
Absolutely. So the masterclass is like the pre-work. Like it's the appetizer, right? That's the way that I look at it. It's what you've got to do, what you've got to kind of really start considering. You don't have to have it all figured out, but you've really got to start considering it before you get into the challenge. And then the challenge is 5 days. And it's a grow your business challenge. And the way that it's organized is I teach you a principle and then you go practice it in the wild. And then we come back and we do the next thing and you practice it in the wild. And by the time you're done with the 5 days, you have your roadmap for what you need to do in your business to get the answer that you figured out in the masterclass. And the great thing about the challenge is you can self-study, right? So it's under $100 for you to self-study. You can get in and do that. Or you can have 5 days of group coaching where you're with other small business owners and we're kicking the can around these ideas or other struggles you're having in the business. Or if you think you need some extra time, you can do that plus spend 45 minutes with me where we really dive deep into whatever your current challenges or trying to answer the question that you couldn't quite answer in the masterclass or dive deep into more of the principles so that you can really make sure that by the end of the challenge, you have a roadmap. You know how to scale your business. You know what it's going to take. You know the steps that have to be done.
I just love, like, there were things that I didn't even think that number was possible when we were talking. And then you think about it more and you're like, well, if you are in the long game, it's 100% possible. It's just a matter of how hard it's going to be to get there based on like the business and operations you have set up. And so knowing that you have this set up that way for 30 minutes, learn from you, chat with you, and then get in the challenge and start freaking like get to work, girl. Then see what's next. But I love it because I am probably not the only one listening who's this way, but I love I have shiny object syndrome in addition to the ADHD. And so I love like anything that is like, let's sell, let's talk about this, let's, and coffee dates and selling and follow-ups are so important. And if the infrastructure of your business is crap, that's not going to work. And so I have hit a wall recently where I'm not actively selling. I'm not, I have a couple proposals out, but we're kind of like in maintenance mode for a hot second. I have an amazing agency coach who's like, you switch off of sales and service. Like, yes, they have to both be together. And she's like, just yesterday, she was voice memoing me in Slack. She's like, can you not for like a month? And that's hard for me because I think it's so, like, I love when Honeybook's like, ding, like someone signed and we onboard and it's fun and the ads are out there and all that. And this is a long play. Someone can wait a month or 2 months and it's going to make them think twice down the road before booking to say like, oh, I need to get in early if I want ads for Black Friday because they're busy and they're growing this and they want to service well. And so that's been a struggle. And so I'm so excited for what you've put together because it really does hit as businesses are scaling. What would you say is like the ideal person to go to this, like revenue wise? Like anyone can learn from it, any part of business, right? But what do you kind of like, I know that might be a hard question, but what do you think about that?
Yeah. So it's an interesting question because if you kind of break down growth in its categories, 0 to 100 or 0 to 500K, you pick your poison on it. It's super painful. It is like grind season. You are doing all of the work. You are doing all of the stuff. You are by yourself. It is hard and painful and it's a struggle. And then when you go from 500 to 1 million, you might have a couple people helping you, right? So you've been able to delegate a little bit, but you're still pretty in the weeds and then running the business. And then you get to 1 to 3. Things are starting to feel good. You've got more help. You have a little bit of time freedom. And then jumping from 3 to 10 is where things get really tricky, because this is where you've got to make that decision about whether you're going to hang out as the visionary or you're going to become the CEO. This is where some of those conversations with yourself need to start happening. And so I like to recommend that you do the work that we're going to lay out in the masterclass and the challenge as early as possible. Because the thing is you can change it. So you can change the answer to the question. You can change what you're doing. But if you understand the framework itself and how to apply it, then as your business goes from 500 to 1 to 3, 3 to 5, 5 to 10, you can go back in and you can work the framework again and figure out what you really need to do, right? And I say this a lot and I get my hand slapped a ton, but you said it a little bit earlier. The majority of people today, right now in business, can't afford me. You can't afford me full-time. You can't hire me a full-time CEO. We're super expensive. Just are.
But it's
and we're a little bit difficult.
Yeah, I think Brad gets like so embarrassed when I do this in public, but I do the like, if you're watching the YouTube, you can see my like the spank of like, yes, you are, but you've also busted your behind for 20 something years to get to that point. And now there's a way you can work with you, right?
And yeah, and this is the entryway. And the other thing that I think is really important to mention is that I'm disrupting this model a little bit. So I firmly believe that businesses, once you hit the 1 million mark, need advice from somebody of a COO expertise and caliber, because how you build is how you scale. So if you think about a house, right? And let's say that you are, you want to build your house in 60 days. So you're like, I'm going to do it. We're going to do like the basic model. We're going to buy all the stuff. It's kind of like Habitat for Humanity. Like, here's the floor plan. We're going to throw the thing up, right? Or you could say, I want to build a house, and I want this house to be a house that my family is going to live in for the next 10 generations. And if you're planning that way, then you're slow and you're methodical, and you go out and you get proposals from all of the architects that are within your budget. And then you go out and you do the same thing with the contractors. And then you start building the house, and then you hire the interior designer whose aesthetic matches yours, and you're intentional with every finish and wallpaper and etc. And if you want to build your business intentionally, then what you need to do is you need to bring in the experts at various points as you build to make sure that you're doing it so that it will last the generations that you're looking for. And that's where a business like mine, On Call COO, can come in, and doesn't need to be there every day. You don't need me full time. You don't need me in your business, but you do need a COO bestie. You need a bat phone, a COO fairy godmother to say like, hey, I'm thinking of making this decision. Is it the right one? How would you look at this differently? What will this look like for me 5 years down the road? Is this really going to get me from 500 to $1 million? Am I betting on the right horse?
Oh, no, I think it's genius. And to anyone listening who's like, oh, I need this, go to the show notes and get your spot for the masterclass and the challenge. Like, just automatically just sign up, because I'll be there, because these are things I'm working through, especially since you told me what the question was. And now I'd be pondering, and I've got to get in that VIP room. I probably need to get that call too. Because I'm building a second business right now. It's not super public, but it is one I'd want to sell. And so I want in that challenge to look through like, what would I want to do with this? And where, if from the beginning of what you're building, you need you to talk about it. And then especially if you've been building without Melissa Franks, you freaking need Melissa Franks. And so I do think about that. I'm like, the home pass through generations hit so hard. And I think about, I just went to Linen and Flax here in Alpharetta, Roswell, their live event, and she is an interior designer. And so it just is so vivid for me. And a question I was going to ask is like about, this is like so funny how this fits with you, is they were all talking about like the different trends, and they're like, oh, what trends are people getting? Are they getting mudrooms? Are they getting this? Are they getting that? And my question, they didn't have time for me. It was going to be, what's overrated in home building right now? I mean, we're not building a home anytime soon, but it's like, same thing translates for you. Like my question was, is the pot filler overrated? Because I see it in all these bougie houses. And so I wanted to be like, I want to, people need to have access to you while they're building their home for generations to be like, hey, Melissa, is this pot filler overrated? Do I really need a mudroom if I don't have kids, or whatever the question is? So you can be like, hey, yeah, you don't need a COO a year into your business. You know what you really need? Or, you can see these gaps that other people cannot see and come alongside them. So, no, everyone listening needs to be in this. And I know you talked about 100. I know you were saying like 0 to 100, or then 100 to 500. I'm in that. Like, speaking transparently, I think I can do more than 500,000 this year. And it is freaking hard. Like, not talking to my friends all the time, being MIA for family. Now I have a phone over there, I have a phone here, and I'm staying scrappy because I want, this turned into a therapy session, right? No, I want to bring Brad home again and work with him. There's so many cool things he can do. That's a whole other thing we need to chat about one day. He is going to work on an offer in functional medicine to help CEOs and executives, business owners, entrepreneurs get well and then stay well, which is just grand slam offer. But with that, you got to be scrappy. And there's things I don't know. And so I'm like so excited for this challenge. And I feel that burn of getting there. And on the flip side, I feel like, and people listening are probably going to like eye roll or like throw tomatoes. I feel like $100,000 is the easiest thing to hit. Am I bad or wrong in saying that? Because like, if someone's listening and they're like, I'm not at the 100 mark, I want to be, because then once you hit 100, then you're scaling to see like what in the 100 to 500 range feels good. A, do you agree with that or no? And B, what advice do you have for someone who's trying to hit 100, who's like, I need to sell my offer, I need to tweak my offer. Like, do you have any advice for the person who's just trying to hit 100 so they can one day grow even more?
So usually what I see is the biggest pitfalls in that 0 to 100 space is that people are selling something that they're not good at, whatever it is.
Ooh.
Or they have attempted to solve a problem that they've never experienced. Because if you are solving a problem that you actually had and your solution solves that problem, or you are monetizing your expertise into a service, getting to 100K is not difficult at all. The ones that struggle are the ones that are trying to mini me and follow the model of somebody else, or have a little bit of knowledge or expertise about something and decide to go all in. That's when you lack the depth of what you're selling. Getting to 100 is going to be really difficult. The difference is when you have the depth. So like your business, when you have the depth and you have the expertise and you're building, where things get challenging when you go from the 500 to 1,000,000 per se, is you have to start making decisions about where you're going to spend your time. And so you need to get really clear on what you are and are not good at in the business.
Yeah.
And that is
it's humbling.
Challenging. It is because you're still in that baby business stage. That's kind of how I refer to those businesses, even if they've been around for a long time. And it's really humbling to say, I actually need somebody else to do this. I'm not so good at this. It's not my story.
I'm so excited for your challenge because I am that baby business owner, and I need you to come rock me and tell me it's going to be okay. And also that I need to go to timeout and get out of the weeds of my business. And I know that this challenge is going to be so good. And even if people can't make the next challenge, there will be updated dates on the pages for them. And now this is the Clicks and Giggles podcast, so we do talk about fun things at the end. But before we switch to the fun part, is there any just advice you'd give, things that you didn't get to speak to that you want to? And then my question I love to ask is like ways you see women or people leaving money on the table. So if you just want to speak to any of that, and then we'll go to the fun part as we wrap up.
Yeah, I would say that the one thing that I always recommend is don't be afraid to ask for help. I think that especially female entrepreneurs want to like show the world on social media that they have it all together and that they have all of the answers. And you're going to grow the fastest if you ask for help. If you're going to reach out to other people that you admire and just say like, hey, even if you need to pay a little bit for their time, like I want to pick your brain about
Yeah.
how you've done your branding, or I want to pick your brain about this. I think that that's something that we just don't do enough.
Yeah.
And the reason that I built On Call COO the way that I did is so that you literally can pick my brain. Like you can just
Mm,
say like, I can't use you right. Like my business isn't big enough, or I'm not in a place where I need this, but like I really just need some guidance.
mm,
So how can we do that? And I think that we need to spend more time doing that.
I love
As
it.
as far as leaving money on the table, the one thing that I see really, really often, and this is a little bit difficult for people, is that they hire their friends and family to work in their business as their first employees, because it's people they trust, or they want to give
Yeah.
them a job, or they're passionate about what you do. And it's going to cost you money in the long run. When you are paying people to do jobs that they're not skilled at doing, or not the most skilled at doing, what's happening is you're getting limiting returns. So as much as you want your bestie in your business and working side by side with you, or your son or your daughter or whomever, the amount of management that you need to do to deliver the results that you're looking for is actually costing your business a significant amount of money, because you're not spending time doing what you're good at. You're spending time filling the gaps because
Ooh.
you wanted to help those people close to you. I'm not saying don't hire them, but you need to be aware that you're actually going to be, if you could quantify it, you're going to be paying their paycheck, whatever that is, plus more, because your time is going to be diverted from growing your business.
Oof. And it's just freaking messy, you know?
100%.
I've
100%.
worked for my dad. I love him, but I don't think we'd do that again. Like he's
And
great. I
and
helped
there's a
him, but
way to do it. So there's absolutely, it's one of the things we'll
yeah.
talk about in the challenge. There's absolutely a way to do it if you decide that you want your business to be a multi-generational business, and you want to pass it down to everybody. That's where things like job descriptions, and only doing it when the company is big enough so they're not reporting to you, and like those
Right.
sorts of things come into play. So it's more of a timing conversation and less a matter of like a hard rule, never have family
Don't.
work for
Yeah.
you. But it's, you know,
I I like that, and like 100%, like had my dad's law firm been bigger, or we had different like, and also like I took advantage. It wasn't my dad. It's like I'd be like, "Oh, I'm going to roll in at 8:35 with my coffee," or like I'm leaving early or whatever it was. I mean, he like gives me crap because he's like, "You literally built your business like while working for me." And I'm just like, "Thank you." I did wouldn't take lunches and would take client calls, and I'd stay after and use the office to take calls. And I dabbled, like that's why I'm like, yeah, I did. Thank you. So no, I agree. I love the thought process too, like you said, of you can hire them. You just need to have someone who's used to that to walk them through it. And it's you. So yes, people listening, get in the challenge, get in her masterclass so you can find out from her what that question is that you need to be asking yourself to just get your operations set up well. So as we wrap up Clicks and Giggles podcast, you're a mom of three boys. You're always at all the sports fields. I see it. I know it. How do you take care of yourself? What can you do for fun? What invigorates you? I know you're in a season just with wild boys all over the place, but what are some things that are fun for you as a business owner and as a person who's operationally minded and can get stuff done to pause and take care of yourself?
Yeah, so I'm an early riser. So the only time that I am by myself, I say this a lot, is, between 4 and 7 a.m. when they all get up. So I really try to make sure that I take time for myself as much as I can,
Good.
during um during those spaces. And then I'm really in a season of I am their Uber. 2 o'clock hits and forget it. I am in the car from like 2 o'clock to 7 o'clock, and I'm literally driving in like a 3 mile, circumference. Like I'm not really going anywhere. But I love to read. So anytime you like walk into my house, you'll see like 5 or 6 books hanging around. Like I'm constantly reading. And I'm one of those annoying people that reads like a lot of books all at the same time.
I love it.
And I live in wine country. So, there's always a wine event to be had. There's always some new cool spot to check out. And so I make sure that I get out as much as I can and,
Get around,
enjoy where
get
I
out and
live.
around.
Yeah.
I love it. No, that is so good. No, I love you're a great mom. I see how you take care of them so well and you show up for them well, and it's inspiring to me as someone who wants to be a mom one day. And I know your operations help in this challenge, and in the masterclass will help me figure out how to do that well. And others, I mean, I know there's moms listening who are like, I've got to operationalize my business in a better way. And so, mom or not, you're the woman for the job. So thank you so much for being here. This was a there's gonna be more conversations like this to come. I know that.
Yeah, this was
Way.
great. Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, yes. Well, I will see you at your masterclass and in the challenge. And for anyone listening, if you want to find Melissa on social media, it will be linked in the notes. But thank you so much, Melissa. I will see you soon here again on the Clicks and Giggles podcast.
Thanks, Jordan.